Russia is switching from ruble to Bitcoin. When the United States prohibited Americans from doing business with Russian banks, oil and gas producers, and other corporations in 2014 following the country's invasion of Crimea, the economic impact on Russia was immediate and massive. According to economists, Western sanctions cost Russia $50 billion every year. Since then, the global market for cryptocurrencies and other digital assets has expanded dramatically. This is bad news for sanctions enforcement, but good news for Russia. Stay tuned to learn how Russia is transitioning to Bitcoin to avoid Western sanction impacts, and the current price of Bitcoin, as it's worth more than the ruble for the first time. How are Russia bypassing current sanctions? The Biden administration imposed further sanctions on Russia in response to the Ukrainian conflict, aimed at limiting Moscow's access to international capital. However, Russian firms are ready to mitigate some of the worst effects by striking partnerships with anyone anywhere in the globe willing to work with them, according to experts. And they claim those companies can then employ digital currencies to circumvent the control points that governments rely on to stymie deal execution, primarily money transfer through banks. Russia has had a lot of time to think about this specific consequence, said Michael Parker, a former federal prosecutor who now leads Ferrari & Associates' anti-money laundering and sanctions practice. It would be naive to believe that they haven't played out this scenario. Sanctions as a tool used by the U.S. and the West. Sanctions are among the most potent measures available to the United States and European countries for influencing the behavior of states that are not considered allies. Because the dollar is the world's reserve currency and is used in payments all around the world, the United States in particular can use sanctions as diplomatic tools. However, American officials are becoming more aware of the potential for cryptocurrencies to mitigate the impact of sanctions and are boosting their monitoring of digital assets. To impose penalties, a government compiles a list of individuals and businesses that its citizens must avoid. Anyone caught interacting with a member of the list faces severe penalties. The global banking system, however, is the essential key to any effective sanctions policy. Banks play an important role in enforcement because they observe where the money originates from and where it goes to, and anti-money laundering regulations oblige them to prohibit transactions with sanctioned companies and report what they see to authorities. But if banks are governments' eyes and ears in the arena, the proliferation of digital currencies is blinding them. Russia crypto diversity and crypto central bank. Banks must follow Know Your Customer regulations, which include validating their clients' identities. However, despite the fact that they're meant to follow the same laws as banks, exchanges and other platforms that facilitate the buying and selling of cryptocurrencies and digital assets are rarely as good at tracking their customers as banks are. The U.S. Treasury Department said in October that cryptocurrencies constituted an increasingly severe danger to the American sanctions program, and that U.S. officials needed to learn more about the technology. Experts say that if Russia chooses to avoid sanctions, it has a plethora of cryptocurrency-related techniques at its disposal. It only needs to discover ways to trade without using the dollar. The Russian government is working on its own central bank digital currency, known as the digital ruble, which it aims to use to deal directly with other countries willing to accept it without first converting it into dollars. Hacking tools such as ransomware could assist Russians in stealing digital money and recouping revenue lost due to sanctions. While cryptocurrency transactions are visible because they're recorded on the underlying blockchain, new techniques developed in Russia can assist the hiding of the origins of such transactions. This would allow corporations to conduct transactions with Russian entities without being detected. Such workarounds are not without precedent. Iran and North Korea are among the countries that have embraced digital currencies to offset the effects of Western sanctions, a trend that has lately been noted by US and UN authorities. According to a United Nations assessment, North Korea, for example, has employed ransomware to steal cryptocurrency in order to fund its nuclear development. Representatives of Russia's central bank told a Moscow newspaper in October 2020 that the new digital ruble would make the country less reliant on the US and better prepared to withstand sanctions. It would allow Russian entities to do transactions with any country wanting to trade in digital currency outside of the international banking system. Russia may find willing partners in other countries targeted by US sanctions, such as Iran, which is creating a government-backed digital currency. According to the World Bank, China, Russia's largest economic partner in both imports and exports, has already introduced its own central bank digital currency. China's leader, Xi Jinping, has stated that the country's relationship with Russia has no bounds. Effects of crypto on sanctions. According to Yaya Fanusi, a fellow at the Center of New American Security who has investigated the effects of cryptocurrency on sanctions, the evolving system in which banks directly swap digital currencies introduces new concerns. The reduction in U.S. sanctions power stems from a system in which these nation-states can conduct transactions without going through the global banking system. According to Reuters, independent sanctions monitors informed the United Nations Security Council in early February that North Korea was utilizing cryptocurrencies to fund its nuclear and ballistic missile programs. The existence of the study, which has not yet been made public, was verified by a representative for Norway's permanent mission to the United Nations. Elliptic, a consultancy business, described how Iran was using Bitcoin mining earnings to compensate for restrictions on its ability to sell oil due to sanctions in May. Sanctioned Russian entities may employ their own evasion tactic, such as ransomware attacks. The strategy is straightforward. A hacker infiltrates computer networks and seizes digital data until the victim pays for its release, usually in cryptocurrency. Effect of the conflict on crypto price. Cryptocurrency prices are rising after Russia's ruble fell to a new low and the country was slammed with further sanctions. According to cryptocurrency tracker CoinDesk, Bitcoin has raised 13% in the previous 24 hours to $43,163. Other cryptocurrencies have also risen in value. Today's price of Ethereum increased by 10% to $2,878. Dogecoin increased by roughly 6% to around 13 cents per unit. Virtual currencies have generally been regarded as a dangerous gamble, but if traditional assets face restrictions or increased volatility as a result of geopolitical tensions, some analysts predict they will gain popularity. According to Arcane Research, an Oslo-based cryptocurrency research organization, trade volume between Ruble and cryptocurrencies on Binance, one of the world's largest cryptocurrency exchanges, has increased in recent days. According to Bendik Shi, head of research at Arcane, investors appear to be trying to get out of the ruble due to its drastic devaluation after all of the sanctions. According to Shi, more people are migrating to Tether rather than Bitcoin. While Bitcoin is the most valued cryptocurrency in the world, the Tether is known as a stablecoin since it's tethered to the US dollar. This is where they find the most comfort at the moment, Shi said of the investors. Given the present market conditions, I'm not surprised that investors, at least those in Russia, are looking for stablecoins. This is about conserving money, not investing. Tether has mostly been stable at around $1 per coin over the last week. The scramble occurred after the ruble fell to 104 to the US dollar on Monday. It was a little different in the early hours of Tuesday. Western powers have frozen Russia's central bank's assets in order to make it more difficult for Russia to minimize the impact of sanctions on some of its largest lenders and other enterprises. The measures are intended to prevent Russia from accessing a rainy day fund that authorities say Moscow expected to use during its invasion of Ukraine. Rather than using the reserves to cushion a falling currency, Russia will no longer be able to access many of the cash held in US dollars. According to some experts, cryptocurrency may offer Russians a method to avoid sanctions in addition to providing a reasonably safe haven for investors. Banks play an important role in enforcing rules under US and EU sanctions. If a sanctioned business or individual wishes to conduct a transaction in a traditional currency such as dollars or euros, the bank is responsible for flagging and blocking those transactions. Digital currencies, on the other hand, operate outside the scope of traditional global banking, with transactions recorded on a public ledger known as the blockchain. Bitcoin overtakes Russian ruble as Russians scramble for cryptos. Amid the volatility and recent gains, Bitcoin now has a higher market capitalization than the Russian currency ruble, which has been declining under the weight of Western sanctions being put on Russia over the invasion of Ukraine, after the Russian President Vladimir Putin last month started a military operation in Ukraine. Bitcoin has overtaken Russia's ruble in terms of total value as the Bitcoin price surges just as the ruble goes into freefall. Data from Fiat Market Cap showed that the cryptocurrency has surpassed the ruble for the first time in global ranking of fiat currencies by market value in BTC, as the crypto is ranked 14th, whereas RUB is 17th on the list. The world's most popular and largest cryptocurrency has added over 20% since dropping to lows of under $35,000 last week. Even if it's still far away from its record high of $69,000 it hit in November last year. Meanwhile, the Russian currency has crashed almost 30% following new Western sanctions imposed on the country over the weekend. The CEO of Coinbase describes Bitcoin as a lifeline for ordinary Russians. According to Chief Executive Officer Brian Armstrong, Coinbase Global Inc. is not currently prohibiting all Russian users, but would comply if the US government imposed such a restriction. The Bitcoin exchange, like any other regulated financial service organization, would restrict transactions from IP addresses that may belong to sanctioned individuals or entities, Armstrong wrote in a Twitter thread. However, it will not prevent all Russians from using Coinbase, he stated. Now that their currency has collapsed, some ordinary Russians are using cryptocurrency as a lifeline. Many of them are probably opposed to what their country is doing, and a ban would harm them as well, Armstrong said. According to recent blockchain data, citizens in the sanctioned country have been slow to trade cryptocurrency on major exchanges. According to Chainalysis, crypto activity in rubles was only $34.1 million on March 3rd. This is down from a recent high of $70.7 million on February 24th, and the $158 million record set on May 20th, 2021. Do you think Russians and Russian governments will get away with Western sanctions with cryptocurrency in the long run? Do let me know your thoughts in the comments section. That'll be it for today's video. Thanks for watching. Bye.